Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
How are you
Morning.
today?
That's fine.
Here is the shared document for our class today. I think every class we're going to have something like this where we can write and put our thoughts and everything. I find it quite useful. And then at the end, you can still look at it again later, which is also very useful. The topic for today, if you go to the shared document, and is everybody there now? Okay. What we're going to talk about today is ideas. And the important question for the day, where do ideas come from? Okay, where do ideas come from? And just to start out, I want to ask you, are you good at thinking of new ideas? Are you good at thinking of new ideas? Some people are really good at thinking of new ideas. Some people, anytime you say, hey, what should we talk about? They always have something, right? Some people, you say, hey, what's your opinion about mo, mo, mo? And they always have an opinion, okay? And other people, ideas are really hard, right? Other people, maybe if somebody has an opinion, they can think of a really good response to another person's opinion, but they have a really hard time just, what should we talk about? What do you want to talk about? Right? And it's really hard for them to think of their own one. Okay. So in writing, some people kind of stop before they begin because they feel like, oh, I can't even think of an idea. Right? And just thinking of an idea is so hard that they never get to the next step. Okay. So today we're going to talk about that. And I want to ask you, what's your level? Okay, so let's give a score from 1 to 7, all right? A 1 means ideas are the hardest part of writing. Okay, that's where I get stuck. And thinking of an idea is so hard, slow, difficult, maybe embarrassing, frustrating. And if I have an idea, if my professor says, write me an essay about this, or here's an opinion, agree or disagree with this opinion, I can do that, but thinking of my own topic, it's the worst, okay? 4 is kind of normal. I think most people, if you take a topic that they like, they can have ideas, right? If I love biology, then ask me to do a topic about animals, and I can think of 7 animal topics that would be interesting for me to write about, right? But for topics you don't like, maybe politics is the area where, I just don't care. I don't know and I don't care. So write an essay about Moon Jae-in's North Korea plan. Can't do it, right? Okay, that's kind of a 4. I think that's kind of the middle position, right? And 7 is the other end. For some people, the hardest part of writing is only choosing one idea. I have so many ideas. I want to write about all of them. And it's so hard for me to choose just one idea when the world is full of so many interesting things to study and learn and explore and write about. Okay, and like people who are a 1 or 2, when I describe that, they go, oh, that would be so nice. Yeah, I wish I was a 7. But being a 7 is actually hard. A 7, okay, a 1 is a person who they get a C on their paper because they couldn't think of an idea, so they chose kind of an obvious topic and they didn't really have any original thoughts about it. So the paper kind of looks like recycling of other people's papers, right? That's how a 1 gets a C on a paper. They spend so much time thinking of an idea that when they choose their idea, they don't have enough time to write well about it, to study it well and write it well. Okay, that's how a 1 gets a C on a paper. 7s get C's on papers too, all the time. And the reason a 7 gets a C on a paper is because the professor said write 1 page, and they wrote 3 pages. The professor said write 3 pages, and they wrote 7 pages. And in those 7 pages, they took 3 different topics that were interesting to them and tried to put them together, and they didn't fit. So they had 3 different papers that they could have written, and they should have just chosen 1 and done a really good job on 1 instead of doing a bad job trying to Frankenstein 3 papers together. Okay, and that's how a 7 gets a C on a paper. So each step has challenges. Okay, and I get 7s in my classes about once every 2 years or so. I get a student who's a true 7, and I have to work with them on focusing, on learning how to focus, on learning how to, yes, I'm curious about this. I'll study it on my own time later. It doesn't fit my topic, and that's hard. Okay, if you're a 1, it's okay to be a 1. You don't need to be shy. If you're a 7, it's okay to be a 7. You don't need to be shy about that either. In the writing process, okay, and we're calling this the writing process. The writing process is all the steps from finding an idea to having a finished essay that you can give to your professor or your boss, all right? That is the full writing process. In the writing process, getting an idea is the first step. For some people, it's the hardest step. For some people, it's not. But after getting an idea, what comes next? Or let's say instead of getting an idea, let's say getting ideas. Okay, after getting ideas, what's the next step? Anybody? Planning is the next step. Okay, planning. After you get ideas, you need to take all the ideas you have and you need to plan them. You need to maybe organize your ideas. Maybe you need to look at all of the ideas you have and decide which of these ideas is a really good one that I should keep and I should write about. Which of these ideas is interesting, but I probably can't write enough about this, and that happens. Or sometimes my problem was always this idea is really interesting, but it's too big. And this is an idea, the professor wants a 3-page paper, but this is an idea that will fit a 10-page paper. And it helps to have a feeling of how long a paper you can write about a topic, because some topics are too big for 3 pages, and some topics are too small for 3 pages, and some topics fit just right. So you need to figure out which of the ideas I had is the best fit for the time I have, the things I already know, the things I have time to research and study and learn about, and the time I have to write. Sometimes part of planning is research. Okay, sometimes part of planning is reading, studying, learning stuff, and deciding how does that fit into my idea. And sometimes you do a little bit of reading, and then you have to do a little more pre-writing. You need to work on your ideas again. And after you work on your ideas, sometimes you think, okay, I have some ideas. I planned a little. Now I know I need a book about this. I need a book about this. And I need a book about this. And after I read those, then I'll know enough to start writing, right? So often pre-writing and planning kind of go in a circle together. And you do a little bit of one, and that helps you do the next. And then you do a little of that, and it helps you do the other. Okay? Until you have enough ideas and enough research to organize it into a plan for your writing. After planning, you can write. And after writing, what comes next? Are you finished after you write?
Okay.
Read one more time.
Yeah, editing and revision. Okay, I wrote it, but it's 1 page too long. How can I make it shorter? I wrote it, but I wrote it quickly, so it's full of little mistakes like spelling and things. So I need to go through and fix all of those, right? I wrote it, but my organization is a little messy. I think I need to move some paragraphs and fix my topic sentences so that my organization is better and easier to understand when somebody reads it, right? That's revision or editing. Now, well, let's talk about this. Why is it so hard to get ideas? Why is it so hard? Anybody have when you try to get ideas, what happens? Why is it so hard? Anybody? No? Everybody's shy today? Okay. I'll tell you what I think, how I feel. Okay, I'll tell you my experience. My experience is there's a little voice in my head, and I call it my inner critic. Okay. And you know, when you look in the mirror, there's a little voice in your head that says, "Oh, you look terrible today." And when you dance, there's a little voice in your head that says, "Oh, you look stupid. Stop dancing. Go sit down. It's embarrassing." Okay. And when you're at the norebang, when you're singing, there's a little voice in your head that goes, "Oh, your singing is really bad. You should just let your friends sing instead of you." Okay. Those are some other places where you might hear the inner critic. Or when you try to create something, sometimes when you're choosing your clothes in the morning, "Oh, this fashion is really bad," right? Those are all places where the inner critic starts talking. For people, it comes up in different situations. Some people when they're singing, some people when they're dancing, or some people when they're creating, some people when they're speaking English. Right? That's another place people hear their inner critic. Okay. During the creative process, especially when you're trying to get ideas, the inner critic is a real poison to the idea process. So pre-writing is a set of strategies to make my inner critic be quiet. Okay, to learn how to ignore my inner critic, to get that inner critic to go away, be quiet, stop bothering me. Because when the inner critic is gone, then ideas start coming, and another idea and another, and they kind of follow each other, right? And after you have one idea, the second idea is easier. After you have two ideas, the third idea is easier, right? Same at the norebang. After one successful song, it's easier to sing the next one, right? Or dancing. After dancing, once you start dancing and you start feeling the music,
it's easier to dance more, right? Once the inner critic starts to get quiet, it becomes much easier to do the thing you're trying to do. So we need to get that inner critic out of the situation, okay? And there are some different strategies, some different methods that we do that work.
Now, during class, I asked students to look up these different methods, and we're going to look at 6 of them this time. And then in each class, students explained what they learned about these different methods. However, because this is a video that I'm going to put up on YouTube and make it permanent, I'm going to go through each one by one, and I'm going to talk about a few important points for these different pre-writing methods. I'm going to ask, what is it, or how do you do it? I'm going to ask, why is it useful, or why is it effective? I'm going to ask, after you've done this pre-writing method, are you ready to start writing, or do you have to do some more steps first? I'm going to ask, what are the strong and weak points? And also, is this method good at making that inner critic go away, silencing my inner critic? Okay, so that's a lot of information, so I'm going to go quick, and as we go, if you need to pause the video in order to read the text and check the text, I'm basically talking about the same stuff, but as we know, it's very boring to just read what's on the screen. So you'll hear a little differences between what's on the screen and what I say. I hope that's okay. Now, for all of these methods, keep in mind learning a little about the topic before you start pre-writing will help you a lot. If you really know just zero about the topic, then you don't have anything to brainstorm with. You don't have anything to put on the paper, and you don't have any ideas to organize when it's time to organize ideas. So the very first thing is go learn about your topic a little bit. You don't have to read 5 books, but learn some of the basics. Read the Wikipedia article or something like that. Okay. After that, after you have a little knowledge about the topic, it's time to do pre-writing. Now, the first pre-writing method is brainstorming. And brainstorming is a method that everybody's heard of, and that's why we're starting with it. How do you do it? Well, you get a whiteboard or a blank piece of paper. You can be by yourself or with a group of people, and just write down everything that comes to mind. The rules for brainstorming are every idea is a good idea, or there are no bad ideas. And you really want to focus in brainstorming on quantity more than quality. Write down as many ideas as you can. Now, why do I say write down as many ideas as you can? And in fact, this is one of the ways a lot of people do brainstorming wrong, is by just writing the first few and then stopping. But the reason you want to write down as many ideas as you can is simply math, surprisingly. The mathematics are, when I write down an idea, there's a chance that idea is a good idea, and there's a chance that idea is a bad idea. Just like when I flip a coin, it might land on the number side, it might land on the picture side. Heads or tails. But if I flip a coin 20 times, well, if I flip a coin 3 times, there's a chance that it'll land on the same side 3 times in a row. And if I write 3 ideas, there's a chance I'll have 3 bad ideas in a row. But it's almost impossible to flip a coin 20 times and have the same side 20 times in a row. And it's almost impossible to write down 20 ideas and have 20 bad ideas in a row. If you write down 20 ideas, some of them will be good. In fact, some brainstormers, some people who are brainstorming, their policy, their philosophy is, I'm going to try to write down 20 bad ideas. And when they try to write down 20 bad ideas, the pressure is off. Right? That I need to have good ideas pressure is gone, which means the inner critic has no place. And once that happens, yes, they're writing bad ideas, but while the ideas start flowing, good ideas start to come into. That's why brainstorming works. Now, after brainstorming, are you ready to write? No. Because you're writing down bad ideas, after brainstorming, not during, but after, you need to go through them and discard the bad ideas, get rid of them. Choose the good ideas, or sometimes find the ideas that fit together logically, that kind of fit together in a way that's sensible or balanced or nice, and choose those as your supporting ideas. So yes, you need to choose your ideas and organize them before you're ready to write. But after you have quantity over quality, once you have a lot of ideas, you can choose, you have a lot of different options for your choices. So yes, you have to do other steps before you're ready to write. Now, the strong points, like I said, we stop being afraid. We stop worrying, oh, that pressure of having a good idea is off, because we're focusing on quantity instead of quality. Okay, this is one of the methods that works in a group. Some of them don't, but this one does, which is another strong point. Another nice thing about brainstorming is just everybody knows it. Everybody's done it before. Everybody's heard of it, so you don't have to explain. It's pretty good in a timed writing situation. Although then you don't want to sit and try to do 20 bad ideas. You just want to get a few ideas until you find a few that fit together. Some weak points of the method, especially in a group. Sometimes you can get off topic if the topic isn't very clearly defined. And the main danger of brainstorming is that people stop too soon. Okay, I said before, if you write down 30 ideas or 20 ideas, some of them will be good. But a lot of people stop after 5 or 7 ideas. Well, there's no guarantee. It is possible to have 5 bad ideas in a row, or 5 boring ideas in a row. So I really recommend do more and choose your best ideas instead of doing a little and just choosing your first ideas, because your first ideas usually aren't your best ideas. Is this the best method for silencing your inner critic? Not the best. The way to make it work is to go faster. The faster you go, the harder it is for your inner critic to start talking. And the more you focus on as many bad ideas as you can, the more you focus on quantity over quality, the better it works for getting your inner critic out of the picture. The next method is mind maps. This has a few different names. Some people call them mind maps, some people call them word webs, some people call them clusters. It's basically the same way. It's basically the same method. How do you do it? You take a blank piece of paper or a big blank whiteboard or blackboard and write the main topic keyword in the middle of the paper. Draw little circles, or draw a circle around it and sticks coming out from the circle in different directions, and write connected subtopics at the ends of those branches. And then keep going. Make more branches out of those ones and use arrows to connect them. And then you can also use arrows just to show how ideas are connected or which ideas are connected. Here's an example of a word web or a mind map. This is one some of my students found. And you'll notice the way that this one has, first it has the topic in the middle, and then the branches go out, and each of the branches has connected ideas on the side. One thing that's nice about this method is these ideas might become your main idea. These smaller ones might become your supporting ideas, which means your organization might already be done after a good mind map. Here's another example. You see how the branches go out, and each of those branches has some connected subtopics. Okay, why does it work? It's simple, it's fast, it shows how ideas are connected. Okay. It's easy to get started on this one, and that's something that is, especially when you're in a time crunch, that's really nice. Are there steps needed before you're ready to write? Sure, you have to choose some of the ideas and you need to reject some of the others. You'll probably choose. This is one of the best methods for a timed writing situation.
Okay, when you have a time limit, mind map might be the best method to use. Weak points, it can get messy, especially if you have a lot of ideas or if you do a big one. And for some reason, I always find that like one of the corners is mostly empty and another corner it becomes really crowded when I put an interesting idea in one corner and it just fills up. So sometimes you run out of space. If that happens, I do suggest just take that interesting corner where you have no space and put it in the center of a new page. Creative processes are hard, so it's okay to waste a little bit of paper trying to get ideas and trying to be creative. Okay. Will this method silence my inner critic? Like brainstorming, this one works better if you go faster. It's really hard to do the brainstorming style. I'm going to try to write 20 bad ideas and some good ideas will kind of sneak in. But just by putting in a lot of ideas that are connected to the topic, often you'll discover something useful as you do it. So it's not the best one to make your inner critic go away, but it is really good in a time crunch when you don't have much time. The next method we're going to talk about is a personal favorite of mine, and it's called Freewriting. Now, Freewriting is brainstorming and mind maps are two that almost everybody's heard of and almost everybody's tried. Freewriting is one that I learned about in a writing class. It is really good. It's really effective, but a lot of people have never tried it. Okay, so how do you do it? You set a timer, and more time is better. However much time you have. Usually I've found if you set your clock, if you set your timer for more, you get better results. Start writing and just don't stop. Don't let your hand stop moving. Okay? Don't stop to correct mistakes. If you make a mistake, just keep going. You can come back later and fix it later after the timer rings. If you don't know the right word, just leave an empty space, or if you know the Korean word but not the English word, then write the Korean word and go back and fix it later. Don't stop to check your dictionary. Don't stop to fix mistakes. Don't stop to check your spelling. Just don't stop, no matter what. And if you don't know what to say next, if you're stuck for an idea, and this is the key, just rewrite again and again and again and again and again the last word that you wrote until a new idea comes. So repeat until another idea comes. And it's okay to repeat a word a lot of times. A year ago I had a student do Freewriting class, and she wrote her last word about 40 times. She filled up 3 or 4 lines of her paper in her notebook, rewriting the same word. And when she showed it to me, she said, "Oh, I'm sorry, maybe I did it wrong, sorry to write the same word so much." But the idea that came after she rewrote the word was an interesting one. And I don't know why this works, but for some reason, when your hand is focused on writing without stopping, just by focusing your mind on that physical, that body movement, somehow your brain just goes free. And your brain goes in surprising places, really interesting places. So once you've done some free writing, keep doing that right without stopping until the timer rings, until your time limit is finished. Once you're finished, you're not ready to write. You're not ready to take what you wrote in your free write and give that to your professor. You need to look through what you wrote because often it'll be a little messy. Usually it will be disorganized. It might be full of mistakes or problems or kind of off-topic little kind of detours. We call them rabbit trails in English. So you need to look at what you've got and probably you'll find a few interesting ideas in there, but you might need to take those interesting ideas and develop them more, maybe with some brainstorming or a mind map. But you'll have the beginnings of an idea. So free writing is really good if you really don't know what to do. If you really have no idea about this topic. Okay, I hope you did a little reading first, but if you really don't have an inspiration, if you really don't have a, here's what I want to write about, free writing is a really good way to explore a topic, because when your brain is free, when your hand is working and your brain is free, your brain will naturally move toward the areas that are interesting to you. So free writing can help you discover your interest in a topic. Now, free writing has a few strong points, but it also has some big weak points. This is probably the best method to really have unique and new ideas. Of all the methods, this is the one where you might surprise yourself. Okay? Free writing is also the best one to silence your inner critic. When your hand is moving, when your hand starts to hurt but you don't want to stop, you're so busy thinking about that your inner critic is completely gone, totally silent. And this method gets rid of your inner critic probably faster than other kinds of pre-writing. Okay? It feels good to have a bunch of writing that you did. It makes you feel like, hey, I can do this. You know, look at these 2 pages that I already wrote. And I wrote those 2 pages in only 20 minutes. Right? That feels good. Just you have a result. You have something that you did already. And that feels good. And sometimes some of the things you write are good enough that you can put them almost unchanged into your final writing, which saves you time later. Okay? Weak points, it can get messy. And often you get a lot of writing that is unusable in your final essay, in your final writing. That's okay because it's part of the process, but usually when I free write, I have to throw away more than half of what I wrote. Sometimes it goes off topic, it gets disorganized, and your hand gets tired. You're writing without stopping for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Your hand will get tired. And that, for those reasons, this is not a method to try in a timed writing situation. Use mind maps or brainstorming, not free writing when you have a time limit. Okay? Will this method silence my inner critic? Out of all the methods, this is probably the one that silences your inner critic the best. This is also the one that will get you the most creative, most surprising new ideas. So if you want to surprise yourself, this is the one to do. You have to follow the rules though. If you don't follow the rules, if you stop writing for whatever reason, that inner critic just really rushes back. Okay, the next method is keeping a journal. And this one was hard for my groups to figure out because most of the things you find when you do a search for keeping a journal are about, you know, how to decorate your cute journal or something like that. They're not about how to use a journal to prepare for writing, academic writing, or professional writing. So I'm going to talk about that a little. Keeping a journal, how do you do it? You set a regular time for writing, and during that time you write your thoughts, write your opinions, or your ideas, or your feelings, or your experiences. The kind of journal that helps you with preparing to write is not the sort of journal where, 8 o'clock in the morning I woke up, 8:30 I took a shower, 9 o'clock I ate some eggs and toast. But the kind of journal where, yesterday I talked with my sister on the phone and she said blah, blah, blah. I disagreed with her and she got really upset and I'm not sure why. That's the kind of writing that your journal should have if you want to really use your journal to become a better writer. Some people do this on a blog or YouTube or a podcast, but you don't have to. Some people like doing that because they get feedback or replies or comments. but it is better to choose one topic and focus on it than to try and cover like 7 different topics on one page if you're going to use keeping a journal specifically to become better at writing the kind of writing your professor or your boss wants. Why does it work? It works the same reason that you go to the gym and lift weights 3 times a week, right? Experts say 3 times a week is better if you want to really see results. If you practice piano 3 times a week or every day, or if you practice your taekwondo or a sport or shoot a basketball every day, it gets easier and you get better at it. So the same thing is true for writing down your thoughts, putting your ideas in words. If you practice, you get better at it and it becomes easier. So writing regularly will make all the other steps of this process easier for you because of all the practice you've had. Keeping a journal will usually not mean that you are ready to hand in your essay. When your professor gives you a topic, you usually don't think, oh, well, in journal number 15 on page 40, I have 3 pages of writing that are exactly what the professor wants. That has never happened to me. It probably won't happen to you. But by writing all of those journals, you know your writing process. You know what it takes for you to write. You know what kind of ideas you are interesting to you. And you know how to put your thoughts in words. And you know when you think about a topic, you know how many pages that topic will probably fill if you write about it. Oh, this is a 2-page topic. This is a 6-page topic. Oh, that's a big topic. I can probably write 10 pages on it. So it's not a good fit for a 2-page essay assignment. And learning about yourself as a writer will help you to know how much time you need, how to prepare, what kind of information you need to do a good job for the writing you are doing for your boss or your professor. Writing a journal has a few strong points. Like I said, practice makes perfect, and that means that you will become better at finding ideas, and also your journals will be full of ideas that you've already developed before, which gives you the confidence that you can do it. You'll become better at writing and at examining an idea, kind of exploring it, and also at explaining things in words. Writing a journal can be really good personally because writing to yourself is a type of therapy. And it can help a certain kind of person to balance their life. And also, when people write regularly, well, what I found when I wrote regularly is I paid more attention to my life, because as I was going through my life, I would notice something interesting and think, I'm going to write about that tonight. So while planning what I would write, I kind of was writing it in my head. And while doing that, I was also paying more attention to the details of that thing I planned to write about, or remembering the details, thinking through them again, thinking, how would I explain that in words? What would I say first? And by doing that, I found I was paying attention to the world around me more. And because I was paying attention more, I was enjoying my life more. Weak points. It's hard to write every day. It's easy to put down your journal and forget to pick it up again. We get busy. And not everybody has the personality to just sit down and write their thoughts regularly. This is not a method that everybody can do. This is not a method that fits with every person's character. And you still have to do the preparation for your writing assignments. Like I said, you can't just pull a journal off the shelf and say, oh, here's my essay about blah, blah, blah. A professor gives you a topic, you still have to do some preparation, think about it, learn about it, research, and plan how to write your topic. However, each of those steps will be easier for you because you've been doing it again and again regularly. So in the big picture, keeping a journal makes you a more confident, more experienced writer, which means every step of the writing process will be easier for you because you keep a journal, But in the narrow picture of just this one specific assignment, keeping, your years of keeping a journal don't give you something that's right here in front of you that you can say, okay, here's what I can do. You still have to do those other steps. Will this method silence my inner critic? Sure it will. Like I said, anything you practice several times a week, you get better at it. And one of the things that you are practicing several times a week, if you keep a journal, is learning how to ignore your inner critic. So when you need to write, you will know how to ignore it because you have practice. Other people who never write, they'll be facing their inner critic again for the first time and dealing with all of those feelings and frustration. Whereas you've done it before, so it's easier. The next method we're going to talk about is talking it out with a friend. And talking something out with a friend is like journals, a certain kind of person. Just keeping a journal really fits who they are. And there's another certain kind of person who talking something out with a friend just fits who they are. There are some people probably watching this video for whom talking it out with a friend is their first choice to explore or get comfortable with the topic. How do you do it? The instructions are pretty simple. Find a friend and talk with them about your topic. You can meet in person, you can meet on a chat or something like that, you can do a video call, whatever suits you and your friend. Talk about your topic, and then when you finish talking about your topic, I really recommend just write down everything you remember from that conversation with as much detail as you can, especially any part of the conversation that as you were talking about it, you thought, this is useful, this is interesting, and this is something that I might use in my essay. Okay, why does it work? It works because talking with friends is fun, it's relaxing, and that means that because we're just focusing on our friend, we're not feeling the pressure of, oh, you need to come up with a good idea right now. Okay. After talking with a friend, you're probably not ready to start writing immediately. You probably have to look at your notes, and your notes will give you some directions, some areas to study or research, and some areas that, oh, I need to think about this more. So you might need to do maybe a brainstorm or a mind map. You might need to do some other idea developing before you can do your planning. But talking it out with a friend helps to become more comfortable with the topic so that I kind of have a feeling of which areas of a topic I'm interested in exploring. And that's really important too. Now, it has some strong points and some weak points. One of the strong points is that it's relaxing, it's fun. You don't need any extra materials. You don't need a whiteboard or a computer or something. It's just you and your friend. And another strong point of this one is that for a lot of people, just explaining an idea or explaining your thoughts to another person helps you to understand them. That's true for me. When I think on my own, I kind of think in circles. But when I explain something to another person, I have to kind of organize my thoughts in a way they can understand it. So having a person nearby I can talk to helps me to put my ideas into an organized shape. It builds friendship, it's flexible, and also if you have a friend who's interested in the topic or knowledgeable about the topic, or just who's a thoughtful, interesting person, their perspective might give you a new way of thinking about the topic. Some weak points of the method. Conversation is often disorganized, so you probably need to do some thinking and some organizing after conversation. It's very easy to go off topic when you're talking with a friend, and some friends really like to go off topic because maybe the topic you want to talk about is not their favorite thing to talk about with you. Also, you might have a friend who's unfocused. You might also have a friend who just isn't interested in that topic. Or you might have a friend who's busy. So this method is very dependent on your friend. You need a friend who either knows about the topic or is curious, or is just really good at asking questions. Okay? And it's sometimes hard to find a friend like that. Not everybody has a friend like that. And especially that friend needs to also have the free time. So because of all of those things, this method is not helpful in a timed writing situation. And as far as silencing your inner critic, in the middle of talking with your friend, your inner critic isn't there, but the inner critic might come back when you are looking at your notes from your conversation and trying to organize it into something. So you might need to use another of these methods later on anyway. Although talking something out with a friend is a nice and fun, enjoyable way to become more comfortable with the topic of your writing. The last method, we didn't talk about this in class, but it's one that I'm adding, is writing an imaginary letter. And how do you do this one? You just think of a person that you're comfortable writing to, somebody who likes you and you like them, that you can imagine writing a nice letter to. And instead of writing your essay for your professor, just imagine that you're explaining your topic to your grandma, or your nice uncle, or your cool cousin who lives overseas. Okay? And simply, it works because simply by imagining you're writing to someone else instead of your professor, it feels less stressful. It feels okay to just write your thoughts. And for some people, that's enough to reduce the pressure of, having a great idea or writing perfect writing. Just by imagining that I'm going to send this to my grandmother is enough to reduce that feeling of pressure to be perfect. What other steps are needed? That really depends on what you've written. Some people can do this. Some people do this method and they end with something that only a few small changes are needed to hand it in to their professor. Other people might need to do bigger changes. They might need to totally change their organization. They might have been using very casual language and they need to change to academic language. So sometimes you do have more work to do, but not always. But this is a method that some people use to feel less pressure and less burden so that they can write more easily. This is a good method to use in a timed writing situation. I already mentioned the other strong points earlier, but yeah, when you have a time limit, that's another good time to just imagine that you're writing your grandmother or your best friend, instead of imagining that you're doing this for a grade and for points or for your TOEFL score. Weak points of the method. If you're not comfortable writing letters anyway, then this one won't work for you. And some people, when they're thinking about their friend, they make mistakes in informal language or casual style. So you have to be careful about that. And also the style of letter writing is different from the style of academic writing. So in letter writing, it's totally okay to say you, but in academic writing, it isn't. And that's a little mistake that a lot of people will get caught doing if they're not careful using the writing a letter method. Can this method silence my inner critic? When you're imagining writing to someone who likes you, you kind of trick your inner critic into leaving you alone, hopefully. But I would say this is not the best method for silencing your inner critic. If you have a lot of inner critic anxiety or problems, try Freewriting, keeping a journal, or maybe mind maps. This method, if you love writing letters, if you're comfortable writing letters, this might work for you, but it won't work for everybody. Finally, we've talked about 6 different methods of pre-writing, 6 different ways to develop ideas, 6 different ways to get my inner critic out of the picture. We talked about brainstorming, we talked about mind maps or word webs or clusters, they're the same thing. We talked about free writing, we talked about keeping a journal, we talked about talking through the issue with your friend, and we talked about imagining that we're writing a letter. Those are 6 different ways to beat your inner critic. The last thing I want to say is try them out, experiment. Most people have tried 1 or 2 of these, but not many people have tried all of them. And one of these methods might be just the right fit for you, for your creative process, and for the way you write, but you've never tried it before. So take this opportunity to experiment, to try some different ones, and see if, well, maybe this one is actually really helpful for me. So take risks, explore. What's the worst that can happen, right? There's nothing bad that can happen if you try a pre-writing method and it doesn't really work for you. But if you try a new pre-writing method and it turns out to really work well for you, well, it sure is good that you had an experiment and tried something new. So give these a try, see which one works for you, and learn your process. Learn how your process works, what works for you, what doesn't, how much time you need, how much planning you need before you can start writing. Figure it out for yourself, because every person is different. And yes, it's important to get ideas. How you get the ideas is less important than you need ideas. It's important to plan. Having a plan before you start writing makes it much easier to write, because if you already know what you're going to say next, then you can just focus on writing good sentences, writing beautiful sentences and correct sentences, rather than trying to write correctly but also think of what to say next at the same time. Okay, do one thing at a time. Plan before you write. And once you finish your writing, don't forget to edit. Don't forget to check for mistakes and errors. And the writing mechanics series that I published on this account earlier, and the writing mechanics series that I published on this YouTube channel earlier, is a really good place to look for that step of the writing process. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your time. Good luck discovering your own creative process.